I'm Jake Tanner, just a regular guy trying to make sense of things. Growing up, I always felt like something was off in our family, like I was missing a piece of the puzzle. It wasn't anything big you could point to, not at first. Just small moments that made me wonder why things felt uneven. Looking back, I can see it clear as day. There was always this quiet tension between me and my younger brother, Caleb. We were supposed to be tight, like brothers are. But in our house, it felt like we were playing by two different rulebooks. I was about 11 when I first noticed it. We just moved to a new place in a small town in Ohio, a fixer-upper with a big yard. My folks, Tom and Linda, said it was a fresh start. The house was decent, but they stuck me in the shed out back. They called it a bonus room, said it'd give me space to be my own man since I was the older kid. Sounded cool at first. I mean, who doesn't want their own spot? But that shed wasn't no bonus. It was drafty, smelled like old paint, and had this creaky floor that kept me up at night. Meanwhile, Caleb, who was 8, got 2 rooms inside the house, one to sleep in, another for his projects. They said he needed it for his model building hobby, that it helped him focus. I didn't think much of it right away. I was the big brother, supposed to roll with the punches. But little things started gnawing at me. One day, I was out in the shed, trying to do my homework on a wobbly card table, when I heard Caleb and his buddies laughing inside the house. They were messing around in his project room, building some fancy model airplane. I walked in to grab a soda and saw Mom fussing over Caleb's work, all proud, like he was crafting a masterpiece. Dad was there too, nodding along, saying how Caleb's focus was something special. I stood there, feeling like an outsider in my own house. "Hey, Mom," I said, keeping it light. "Any chance I could move into one of the rooms inside? The shed's kinda chilly, and I could use a real desk." She barely looked up, just waved a hand. "Jake, we've been over this. Caleb needs his space for his projects. It's important for him. You're fine out there. Think of it as your own little hideout." Hideout? It felt more like a doghouse. I didn't push it, though. I was just a kid, and Mom's word was law. But as time went on, it started to eat at me. I'd pass by Caleb's rooms, 2 whole rooms, crammed with model kits, tools, and posters, and feel this knot in my gut. Why did he get all that? I wasn't asking for much, just a spot that didn't feel like an afterthought. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. Caleb had friends over, and they were making a racket in the house. I was stuck in the shed, trying to study, but the cold and the noise made it impossible. I went inside, hoping to clear my head, and there were Mom and Dad, sitting with Caleb, talking about his latest model like it was going to the Smithsonian. I don't know what made me do it, but I spoke up. "Why's Caleb got 2 rooms for his models, and I'm stuck in the shed? I don't even have a proper desk." The room went quiet. Mom's face tightened, like I'd crossed a line. "Jake," she said, real soft, Caleb's different. He needs extra support to thrive. It's not the same for you." "Different?" I felt my stomach twist. "I don't need support?" I asked, my voice shaking. Caleb looked at me, confused, like he didn't get why I was mad. Dad just sighed, like I was making a fuss over nothing. I didn't say another word. I went back to the shed, slammed the door, and sat there in the dark, feeling like I'd been lied to my whole life. Family's supposed to be fair, right? But it sure didn't feel that way. That was the moment I knew I couldn't just let it slide. I wasn't sure how, but I was going to make them see me, one way or another. Life in that shed didn't get any easier as the years rolled on. I'm Jake Tanner, and back then, I was just a kid trying to figure out why my place in the family felt like a leftover scrap. By the time I hit 14, I'd gotten used to the creaky floorboards and the way the wind whistled through the cracks in the walls. But getting used to something doesn't mean you like it. Every day, I'd walk past Caleb's 2 rooms, his sleeping quarters, and that project room packed with model planes, cars, and ships, and feel like I was staring at a life I wasn't allowed to have. My brother, 3 years younger, was the star of the show, and I was just the guy in the background, holding up the props. My parents, Tom and Linda, didn't seem to notice how it looked from my side. They were always buzzing around Caleb, praising his latest model or talking about how his focus was a gift. Me? I was the easy kid, the one who didn't need fussing over. I got good grades, stayed out of trouble, and didn't make waves. But that didn't mean I didn't feel the sting of being shoved to the side. One afternoon, I was out in the shed, wrestling with algebra homework on that rickety card table, when I heard Mom's voice through the open window. She was in the kitchen, chatting with a neighbor. "Caleb's got such a knack for building things," she said, her voice all warm and proud. "We're thinking about entering his models in a county fair competition." I stopped writing, pencil frozen in my hand. County fair? That was news to me. I mean, I knew Caleb was into his models, but this was next level. Nobody ever mentioned it to me, not even in passing. I felt like I was living in a house where I was half invisible. I shoved my books aside and headed inside, figuring I'd ask about it. Mom was still in the kitchen, stirring a pot of chili, when I walked in. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to sound casual. "What's this about Caleb and the county fair?" She glanced up, surprised, like she forgot I could hear her from the shed. "Oh, Jake, it's just something we're looking into. Caleb's models are really coming along, and we think it could be a great opportunity for him." She smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that invited me in. It was the kind that said, "This isn't your thing." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. That's cool, I said. Just wondering if, I could get a desk or something for the shed. It's hard to study out there. Mom's smile faded, and she set the spoon down. Jake, we've talked about this. The shed's fine for you. Caleb needs the space inside for his work. It's not just about the models. It's about giving him what he needs to grow. I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. Caleb's models were his growth. But what about me? Didn't I get to grow too? I'm not asking for a whole room, I said, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. Just a desk. Something that doesn't wobble. She sighed, like I was being difficult. You're doing fine, Jake. You've got your space. It's good for you to have your own spot. Her words hit like a slap. My own spot. That shed wasn't a spot. It was a punishment. I didn't argue, though. I just turned around and went back to the shed, feeling like I'd lost a fight I didn't even know I was in. That night, something shifted in me. I was lying on my cot, staring at the ceiling, when I heard Caleb's laughter from the house. He had friends over again, probably showing off his latest model. The sound carried through the walls, and it felt like it was mocking me. I got up, grabbed a flashlight, and started pacing the shed, looking at the bare walls and the pile of blankets I used to keep warm. This wasn't a home. This was a storage unit. And I was tired of pretending it was okay. The next day, I decided to try again. I waited until dinner, when everyone was at the table. Mom, Dad, Caleb, and me. Caleb was rambling about some new model kit he wanted, and my parents were eating it up, nodding like he was giving a TED Talk. I cleared my throat. Hey, can I say something? I asked. They all looked at me, surprised, like I'd interrupted a sacred moment. I've been thinking, I said, keeping my voice steady. Maybe I could move into one of the spare rooms. The shed's not great for studying, and I'm trying to keep my grades up. Dad leaned back in his chair, frowning. Jake, you know why Caleb has those rooms. His projects take up space, and he needs it to stay focused. You're older. You can handle the shed. Caleb didn't say anything, just kept eating, but I could tell he was listening. Mom chimed in, her voice soft but firm. Jake, Caleb's got special needs. You're strong. You don't need the same kind of support. Special needs? I felt like I'd been punched. What about my needs? I asked, louder than I meant to. Don't I matter? The table went quiet. Caleb looked up, his face blank, like he didn't get why I was so worked up. Mom's eyes went wide, then narrowed. Of course you matter, she said, but it sounded hollow. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone. Best for everyone? It sure didn't feel like it was best for me. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Yeah, well, maybe I'm tired of being the one who's got a deal. I walked out, back to the shed, my heart pounding. For the first time, I wasn't just mad. I was done playing the good big brother. I wasn't sure what I'd do next, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I'm Jake Tanner, and by the time I was 16, I'd had enough of being the odd man out in my own family. Living in that shed out back wasn't just inconvenient anymore. It was a constant reminder that I didn't rank the same as my brother, Caleb. He was 13 now, still holed up in his 2 rooms, building model rockets and cars like he was destined for NASA. My parents, Tom and Linda, treated his hobby like it was the second coming, while I was still scraping by with a flashlight and a card table in a shed that smelled like mildew. The unfairness of it wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a weight I carried every day. I tried to keep my head down, focus on school, maybe earn a scholarship to get out of this town. But it was hard when I felt like I was living on the fringes of my own life. One Saturday, I was in the shed, trying to write an essay for English class, when I heard Mom's voice from the house. She was on the phone, gushing to someone about Caleb's latest project, a model rocket he'd entered in a regional competition. He's got such a bright future, she said, her voice carrying through the thin shed walls. We're so proud of how he's channeling his energy. I dropped my pen, my stomach twisting. Bright future? What about my future? I was pulling straight A's, but nobody ever threw a parade for that. I decided to bring it up again, even though I knew how it'd go. I waited until Mom was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. Hey, Mom, I said, leaning against the counter. I heard you talking about Caleb's rocket thing. Sounds cool. But, I'm kinda struggling out in the shed. Any chance I could get one of the rooms inside? Just one. I need a real place to study. She didn't even look up, just kept slicing carrots. Jake, we've been through this, she said, her tone flat, like she was reading a script. Caleb needs his space for his projects. It's not just a hobby, it's how he copes. You're doing fine out there. Copes? I felt my jaw tighten. I'm not fine, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm freezing half the time, and I can't concentrate with the noise from the house. I'm trying to get into college, Mom. Doesn't that matter? She finally looked at me, but her eyes were tired, like I was wearing her out. Of course it matters, Jake. But Caleb's different. He needs more support. You're strong. You can handle it. There it was again, that line about Caleb being different. I wanted to yell, ask why I had to be the strong one all the time, but I just nodded and walked out. Arguing felt like punching a brick wall. That night, things came to a head. Caleb had his buddies over, and they were in his project room, laughing and blasting music. I was in the shed, trying to read, but the noise was like a hammer to my skull. I slammed my book shut and marched inside. Mom and Dad were in the living room, watching Caleb and his friends with these proud, goofy smiles. I couldn't take it anymore. Can you guys keep it down? I said, louder than I meant to. I'm trying to work out there, and it's impossible with all this racket. Mom's smile faded, and Dad raised an eyebrow. Jake, they're just having fun, he said. Caleb's been working hard on his rocket. Let him enjoy himself. I felt my blood boil. What about me? I snapped. Why is it always about Caleb? He's got 2 rooms, a whole setup, and I'm stuck in a shed like I don't even belong here. The room went dead quiet. Caleb's friends stopped messing around, and Caleb looked at me, his face all confused, like I'd just spoken in tongues. Mom stood up, her voice sharp. Jake, that's enough. You know Caleb needs extra space for his projects. It's not about you. Not about me? I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Yeah, I've noticed, I said. It's never about me. I'm just the guy who gets the leftovers, right? Dad stepped in, his voice low. Son, you're twisting this. We're doing our best to balance things. Caleb's got challenges you don't. Challenges? I looked at Caleb, who was staring at the floor now, and I felt a pang of guilt. But it wasn't enough to stop me. I've got challenges too, I said. You just don't see them because you're too busy building Caleb's pedestal. I didn't wait for a reply. I stormed back to the shed, my heart racing. For the first time, I'd said what I really felt, and it felt good, but also terrifying. I sat on my cot, staring at the bare walls, and realized I couldn't keep living like this. I didn't know how to fix it, but I knew I had to do something. I wasn't just the big brother anymore. I was Jake, and I deserved better than a shed and a pat on the head. I just had to figure out how to make them see that. I'm Jake Tanner, and by 17, I was done playing the good guy in a family that didn't seem to notice me. That shed out back, my so-called room, was like a splinter in my mind, a constant jab reminding me I was less important than my brother, Caleb. He was 14 now, still ruling the roost with his 2 rooms, his model rockets stacked like trophies. My parents, Tom and Linda, acted like Caleb was the only one with dreams worth chasing. Me? I was just the reliable kid, expected to grin and bear it while I froze in a shed that wasn't fit for a dog. I'd started planning my escape, focusing on school to land a scholarship and get out of that Ohio town. But no matter how hard I worked, the shed and the favoritism kept dragging me down. One evening, I was out there, cramming for a history test, when I heard Dad's voice from the house. He was on the porch, talking to a buddy about Caleb's latest rocket launch. Kid's got real talent, Dad said, all puffed up. We're looking into a summer program for young engineers. Engineers? I nearly laughed. Caleb was good with models, sure, but this was getting ridiculous. Nobody ever talked about my plans, and I was the one pulling a 3.8 GPA. I decided to try one more time to make them see reason. I waited until breakfast the next morning when everyone was at the table. Mom was flipping pancakes, Dad was reading the paper, and Caleb was sketching some rocket design. Hey, I said, setting my fork down. I've been thinking. I really need a better place to study. The shed's falling apart, and I'm trying to get into college. Can I take one of the spare rooms inside? Mom froze, pancake batter dripping from her spatula. Dad lowered his paper, his face already set in that here we go again look. Jake, Mom said, her voice tight, you know why Caleb has those rooms. His projects are important for his development. You've got your space out back. Development? I clenched my fists under the table. My space is a dump, I said. I'm not asking for both rooms, just one. I need a desk, a light, something that doesn't make me feel like I'm camping. Dad chimed in, his tone calm but firm. Son, Caleb's got unique needs. You're older, tougher. You don't need the same setup. There it was again, unique needs. Like I was some robot who didn't need anything. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tougher. I said, my voice rising. I'm busting my butt for school and you don't even care. Caleb gets everything 2 rooms, your attention, some fancy summer program. What do I get? A shed and a pat on the back. The kitchen went silent. Caleb looked up from his sketch, his eyes wide, like he didn't know what to make of me. Mom's face went pale, then red. Jake, that's not fair, she said. We're doing our best to support both of you. Support? I laughed, and it came out bitter. You call sticking me in a shed support? You're so busy propping up Caleb, you don't even see me. Dad stood up, his chair scraping the floor. That's enough, Jake. You're making this about you, but it's bigger than that. Caleb needs structure. You're fine. Fine? I felt like I'd been gut-punched. I looked at Caleb, who was staring at me now, not angry, just confused. For a second, I wondered if he even knew how this looked from my side. I'm not fine, I said, standing up to match Dad. I've been the good kid my whole life, taking the scraps while Caleb gets the whole pie. I'm done with it. Mom reached out, her voice softer. Jake, please. We love you. We're just trying to balance things. Balance? There was no balance. I shook my head and walked out, the screen door slamming behind me. I didn't go to the shed this time. I kept walking, down the street, past the neighbor's yard, until I was at the edge of town. My heart was pounding, my head a mess. I sat on a bench by the gas station, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't keep living like this, feeling like a ghost in my own family. Caleb wasn't the enemy, he was just a kid, caught up in the same messed up system. But my parents? They were the ones setting the rules, and I was tired of playing by them. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make them see me, not as the tough kid who could handle anything, but as Jake, their son, who deserved a place at the table. I just had to find the guts to keep pushing. I'm Jake Tanner, and at 18, I was ready to break free from the shadow of that shed out back. I'd spent years feeling like an afterthought in my own family, watching my brother Caleb get the spotlight with his 2 rooms and his model rockets. My parents, Tom and Linda, never seemed to see how much it hurt, always saying Caleb had special needs that justified the unequal treatment. But I wasn't a kid anymore, and I was done waiting for them to notice me. I'd earned a partial scholarship to a state college a few hours away, and I was counting the days until I could leave that Ohio town in the shed that felt like a cage. Coming home from my part-time job at the hardware store one day, I felt the weight of it all hit me again. I walked into the house, and there was Mom, sitting at the kitchen table with Caleb, going over some flyer for a rocket building workshop. "Jake, you're home," she said, all cheery, like nothing was wrong. "Caleb's been invited to this amazing program. Isn't that great?" I looked at her, then at Caleb, who was grinning over his sketchbook. "Yeah, real great," I said, my voice flat. "I'm sure he'll do awesome." I didn't stick around for her reply. I headed to the shed, my stomach churning. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to college just to escape. I was going to make my own life, one where I wasn't defined by being the tough kid who got the short end of the stick. I started packing, not just for college, but for good. I didn't have much, just clothes, a few books, and a beat-up laptop, but it was enough. The shed looked emptier already, like I was peeling away the years of resentment. I wrote a letter to my parents, not to be dramatic, but to say what I'd never been able to get across. I left it on the kitchen table before bed. "Mom, Dad," it read, "I'm leaving for college soon, and I'm not coming back to the shed. I've spent years feeling like I don't matter as much as Caleb, and I can't keep doing it. I'm not mad at him. He's just a kid. But you made choices that hurt me, and I need to build something for myself now. I hope you understand." I didn't know if they'd get it, but it felt good to put it out there. The next morning, I found Mom in the kitchen, holding the letter, her eyes red. "Jake," she said, her voice shaky, "why didn't you tell us you felt this way?" I almost laughed. "I tried, Mom. 100 times. You just didn't hear me." Dad walked in, looking like he hadn't slept. "Son, we didn't mean to make you feel left out," he said. "We were trying to help Caleb." I nodded, but I wasn't backing down. "I know," I said, "but you forgot about me in the process. I'm not staying in the shed anymore. I'm moving out." Caleb was there too, standing in the doorway, looking confused. "Jake, did I do something wrong?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, Caleb. It's not you. It's just how things were set up. I gotta do what's right for me now." He didn't say anything, just nodded, but I could tell he was thinking hard. For the first time, I felt like he might actually see me, not just as his big brother, but as a person. A week later, I left for college. The shed was empty, and I didn't look back. I wasn't running away. I was running towards something better. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end of the story with my family. I just didn't know what came next. I'm Jake Tanner, and college was like stepping into a new world. I was 19, living in a dorm, studying engineering, and finally free from that shed in Ohio. For the first time, I felt like I was building something for myself, friends, classes, a life that wasn't overshadowed by my brother Caleb or my parents' favoritism. But even miles away, the past had a way of creeping back in. I'd get texts from Mom, mostly about Caleb's latest rocket project or some award he'd won. "He's thriving," she'd write, and I'd feel that old knot in my gut. Not because I didn't want Caleb to do well, but because it reminded me how invisible I'd been. I threw myself into school, acing my classes and joining a robotics club to keep busy. But when I came home for winter break, it was like walking into a time warp. The house looked the same, and Caleb was still in his 2 rooms, model rockets everywhere. The shed was still out back, empty now, but it loomed like a ghost. Mom greeted me at the door, all smiles. "Jake, it's so good to see you," she said, hugging me. "Caleb's been working on something incredible. You should see it." I forced a smile. "Yeah, maybe later," I said, dropping my bag in the guest room, thankfully, not the shed. Dinner that night was tense. Dad asked about college, but the conversation kept circling back to Caleb. "He's got a shot at a national competition," Dad said, beaming. I nodded, poking at my mashed potatoes. Finally, I couldn't take it. "That's awesome for Caleb," I said, "but can we talk about something else? Like, I don't know, my classes? I'm doing pretty good too." Mom blinked, like I'd thrown her off script. "Of course, honey," she said. "Tell us about school." I talked about my robotics club, how we were building a drone, but I could tell they were only half listening. Caleb jumped in, talking about his rocket again, and just like that, I was sidelined. I didn't blow up this time. I just finished my food and excused myself. Later, I found Caleb in his project room, tinkering with a model. "Hey," I said, leaning against the door. "Your rockets are cool. I'm proud of you." He looked surprised. "Thanks, Jake," he said. "You okay? You seem off." I sighed. "It's not you, Caleb. It's just hard coming back here. Feels like nothing's changed." He frowned, like he was trying to piece it together. "You mean the shed thing?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, and how Mom and Dad act like you're the only one who matters." He looked down at his model, quiet for a long time. "I didn't know it was like that for you," he said finally. I thought you liked the shed. I almost laughed. Nobody likes a shed, Caleb. We talked a bit more, and for the first time, I felt like he was starting to get it. But my parents? They were still clueless. I went back to college after break, determined to keep my distance. I didn't call much, didn't text. I was building my own life, and I didn't need their approval anymore. But part of me still wanted them to see me, to understand what they'd done. I just didn't know if they ever would. I'm Jake Tanner, and at 20, I thought I'd left my family drama behind in that Ohio town. I was deep into my engineering degree, living in a cheap apartment near campus and working part-time at a tech shop. Life was good, or at least it was mine. Then a tornado tore through my hometown, a freak storm that hit hard and fast. I saw it on the news, houses wrecked, streets flooded, and my phone lit up with a text from Mom. Jake, we need you. The house is a mess, and we're struggling. Can you come home? My first instinct was to ignore it. I'd spent years being the kid they didn't see. Why should I drop everything now? But I couldn't shake the thought of them stuck in that mess. So I took a bus back, not sure what I'd find. The town looked like a war zone, trees down, roofs gone. Our house was hit bad. The lower floor was flooded, windows smashed, and the shed out back was just a pile of splintered wood. Mom and Dad were in the living room, sorting through soggy boxes, looking worn out. Caleb was in his project room, or what was left of it, trying to salvage his model rockets. He looked up when I walked in, and for once, he didn't have that oblivious grin. Hey, Jake, he said quietly. Thanks for coming. Mom hugged me, her voice shaky. Jake, we don't know what to do. The house is unlivable right now. Can we stay with you at your place until we figure this out? I froze. My apartment was a one-bedroom, barely big enough for me. And after everything, the shed, the favoritism, I wanted to say no. But I looked at them, at the mess around us, and I couldn't just walk away. All right, I said, but we need to talk first. We sat in the wrecked living room, and I let it all out. I'm only here because you're my family, I said. But for years, you made me feel like I didn't matter. The shed, the way you put Caleb first every time, it hurt. I'm not doing this unless things change. Mom's eyes filled with tears, and Dad looked like I'd slapped him. Jake, Mom said, we didn't realize how bad it was for you. We were trying to help Caleb. I nodded. I get that. But you forgot me. And I'm not going back to being that kid. Caleb spoke up, his voice small. I didn't know, Jake. I thought you were okay with everything. I looked at him, and I believed him. He wasn't the problem, our parents' choices were. It's not on you, I said. But we're starting fresh, all of us. I laid out my terms. They could stay at my place, but we'd share the space equally, no special treatment. And when they rebuilt, the shed was gone for good. They agreed, and for the first time, I felt like they were listening. I'm Jake Tanner, and at 21, I finally found my place, not just in the world, but with my family. After the tornado, Mom, Dad, Caleb, and I crammed into my tiny apartment near campus. It wasn't easy, 4 of us in a one-bedroom, with our mattresses and takeout dinners, but it forced us to face each other. No distractions. For the first time, we talked, really talked. I told them about the shed, how it made me feel like an outsider. Mom cried, saying she thought she was doing right by Caleb. Dad admitted they'd leaned too hard on me being the strong one. Caleb just listened, and I could tell he was starting to see things differently. We set ground rules. No favoritism, no putting Caleb's rockets above everything else. I helped with the insurance paperwork for the house, and Caleb pitched in, surprising me with how sharp he was. One night, he showed me a model he'd been working on, a drone, like the ones I build in my robotics club. Want to help me finish it? He asked. I grinned. Yeah, let's do it. We stayed up late, tinkering together, and it felt like we were brothers, not competitors. Mom and Dad watched us, and I saw something new in their eyes, pride, not just for Caleb, but for me too. When the house was rebuilt, we moved back, but it wasn't the same. The shed was gone, replaced by a small study where I could work. Caleb kept one room for his projects, but the other became a shared space for all of us. Mom started asking about my classes, my plans, and Dad took me fishing, just the 2 of us, something we hadn't done since I was a kid. It wasn't perfect, old habits die hard, but it was better. I graduated college a year later, landed a job at a tech startup, and moved to a bigger place. Caleb visited, and we built a rocket together, launching it in a field near my apartment. Looking back, I don't hate my parents for what happened. They were trying to navigate Caleb's needs, but they lost sight of mine. The tornado didn't just wreck the house, it tore down the walls between us. I'm not the kid in the shed anymore. I'm Jake, an engineer, a brother, a son, and for the first time, I feel like I belong. That's worth more than any room in the house.